Okay, I'm live. Wait, I gotta find a better place to put this because I didn't realize how awful my room looks. Okay, that lighting is bad. I didn't plan this well. Okay. As promised, I'm gonna try to hop on here a bit more. I want to get a better setup. And just start. That's my bed. Hello. Um, just start giving some prompts that oh my God, I'm showing more than I want of my home. That's okay. Reality. Um, yeah, and just sharing some things that we talk about on the podcast or that I use as prompts for clients in session. This is how my lovely partner, this way, leaves his towels. Got to pick your battles in relationships. And I'm going to fold my son's laundry while I do this. But the things, season we're putting together, season 8. And one of the episodes that we recorded and one of the topics we talked about is micro griefs. And that how, as a society as a whole, I feel like sometimes what we acknowledge are the big griefs, the things that we really recognize and understand to be grief, mostly loss, whether that's a person, a job, whatever, like something big qualifies as grief. But there are all these micro griefs that happen probably daily, like little things. And the one micro grief I want to talk about today is just more related to identity and these versions of ourselves that we lose along the way as life changes, as seasons change, as circumstance change. And it's a real thing to grieve and miss a version of ourselves that we used to be. I know for me, as someone that has been in this secondary infertility journey, I have lost a huge part of myself. I have lost a huge sense of self. I'm mourning this version of myself pre-secondary infertility where there was more optimism, more hope, more joy, more lightness. Those are things obviously I can get back, but that is a micro grief, that is to lose sort of that perspective on things, to lose that mindset on things has been very difficult for me. So one of the things I want to do with these lives is kind of just throw questions out to the audience, to kind of explore these topics, to prompt self-reflection, to prompt a little more Spider-Man awareness. And so my question would be, what part of your old self are you mourning? I think if we really stop and reflect, there are pieces of ourselves, again, that we have lost along the way. And I think adulthood in general, just it's kind of, it happens. We're like bogged down by so much responsibility and things we have to do, things we are accountable for, people we're accountable for. And I think there's versions of ourselves that can get lost to that. I know for myself, it's really interesting to this morning, actually, how our phones will like put these montages together of like events or trips or time periods from our past. And I was looking at ones today of old trips that Rob and I took together before Dean, and I was watching them with Dean. And it was all these things that we were able to do and ways we were able to be spontaneous and like get up and go. And I looked at all the pictures of myself and I saw this old version of myself that was more spontaneous, that was more present, that was more playful. And I really had a moment there looking back at all those videos and looking back at all those experiences that Rob and I were able to have together, and also the version of the person I was in those videos. And, often, and in the best way, like our partners see these changes in us too. And Rob will point out to me that, there was this old version of me. And I do think a lot of it was lost to fertility, which I'm working to gain back. But I do think it's important that we stop and acknowledge these micro griefs because they sit with us. They impact us. They influence us. They influence our mood. They influence our emotions. They influence our mindset, our perspective, how we move through each day. And if we're not acknowledging those little micro things as actual griefs, and they're going to get very, very heavy, and they're going to compound on each other. So it's important that we acknowledge and recognize and bring attention to these these things that are sad for us, whether again it's a version of ourselves that we've lost, if it's a vision of life that is not playing out quite yet or is playing out in a way that we didn't expect. I think that is a major grief that we get to acknowledge. I've spoken with so many people on this podcast that um, really grapple with the idea that life has not turned out how they planned. And for most of us, it doesn't. And there's processing that has to happen with that. There is grief with that, to like have this vision of your life or this idea of how things were going to turn out and they don't. That is a grief. And so I really am prompting you with this video to think about maybe what those micro griefs are. The specific question is, what is the version of yourself that you are mourning? Again, I think it is important to acknowledge and bring attention to these things. So if you're coming across this video, take some time to self-reflect on that. Drop some comments or questions. I'd love to hear from you. And I will continue to show up here. I hope everyone's enjoying these little therapeutic prompts and reflections.